When I finished working on For Better, For Worse, I didn't want to retire. I still wanted to do funny comics, funny drawings, and I did a lot of little paintings, and I did some fabric designs, and one of the fabric designs was a robot design. And some friends suggested that I take one of those robot designs and maybe do some children's books. And I thought, well, there's an idea I hadn't thought of. So I challenged myself to do 6 robot books in 1 year. And I tried to find a publisher, but I wanted to write in rhyme. And the publisher said, oh, we're not interested in rhyme because Dr. Seuss has already done it. And I thought, well, that's crazy. Surely I can write in rhyme. Because for me, for some reason, and I don't know why it is, but I can write better a beginning, a middle, and an end, a short story in rhyme. So I started to write, and the characters just kind of came into my head the way they do. I mean, if you're a writer, if you're a creative person, often you don't know where these things come from. You don't know where the design comes from, or the color, or the language. You just don't know. And yet it's almost as if you're imagining something into life, right? And so I started with one book, and that introduced me to the characters, and that allowed me to continue, because I would say, well, who are they, and where do they live, and what do they like, and who are their friends? And so those questions you ask yourself, and that means book 2, and then book 3. And so I'm almost ready to do book 8. That's where I am. When I got the job, it was a totally new process for me. I had no idea how I was going to do this. And the editor, whose name was Lee Salem, gave me Kathy Geiswhite's home phone number, and she was doing a strip called Kathy, and she was great. And Kathy had grown up in advertising, and her dad was in advertising, and she was writing, and her friends were writing for advertisements for television, radio, magazines, that type of thing. So Kathy was a writer more than an artist. And of course, her art, she would always say, well, you know, I'm a better writer than I am an artist. And for me, I was probably a better artist than I was a writer. So I learned to write the way Kathy writes, and she suggested to write it as if you're writing a short play. So I would write, you know, I would divide my art into the 4 little boxes, and I would imagine one person saying something to somebody else and what was going on in the background, and hopefully get a punchline. So you're really kind of riffing with yourself. And so it's an interesting process of being, you're the camera person, you're the writer, you're the director, you're the producer, you're the actor, and all of it is up to you. So it took me 6 months to learn how to do this. I asked for a creative contract rather than to begin the strip right off the bat, because I was lost. It was new completely to me. I had no idea how to begin. So that was really, really helpful. So about 6 months in, I was ready to start, and I was happy that I had some material from that 6 months to start with. But like everybody who starts a new project, you're rough. You know, it's rough around the edges. You're not quite happy with it, but you've got a deadline and you've got to get it out there. So I didn't really learn how to fully do the craft for about 3 years. And after that, I was on my way. I don't know that I have a favorite strip. I mean, people used to ask Charles Schulz this, and he'd say, I haven't written it yet, which I thought was a great answer. But I suppose there are a few that stand out. I loved working with the pets. The pets gave me such joy. There were so many funny expressions, and babies, funny expressions. And I loved when April came on the scene. I had so much fun with that character. And one of my favorite Sunday comics was when Ellie takes April into a public washroom, and you see her looking under doors, looking under doors, looking under doors, and you don't know where she is until the very end. You see that it's a public washroom. But that really happened, you know, in my life, right? And I can't remember whether it was me or my daughter that was looking under the doors, but those are the kind of things that work their way into the strip. And if it's real, and if it's part of your experience, it's often the most fun to draw. I have a few storylines I was very happy with. I guess probably the one that was the worst and yet the best was the story about Lawrence, who comes out as gay, and it's the story of how his family deals with it and how his friends deal with it, and in the end, how it's resolved. And I think I was most proud of that storyline.